Good morning. I am just doing something a little different today. A little background story on us and how we got here, pregnant and adopting and finalizing everything, and kind of how things are going right now, because I haven't really done an update on us, Brennan and I, since the adoption. So let me get started. Brandon and I met 5 years ago. We've been together. We'll be married in August for 4. And when we met, we had a lot of discussions. And pretty early on, we knew we were going to adopt. We were hoping to have biological children first, and then adopt after the fact. That's how my parents did it. My parents have 7 kids. 2 are biological, and then they adopted their last 5. 3 of them were domestic adoptions, and 2 were from Ethiopia. I am one of their adopted children, and I am the first. I was one of their domestic adoptions. They adopted all of the first 3 of us domestically as we were all infants, and then my younger 2 sisters were 6 and 12. I went with my mom. I was a senior in high school. I went with her when she went to get my 2 younger sisters in Ethiopia. So that was really cool. That was my senior trip. My mom homeschooled all of us. So that's how I kind of had the freedom to go in the middle of the school year to Ethiopia on my senior year. So Brandon and I met 5 years ago, and through a mutual friend I worked with up at the hospital, and he went to church with. And we met, we hit it off. We went on a date a day after we met. And then we were dating probably a week, I think, after we met. And we were engaged 6 months later and married a year later. I guess when you know, you know. So we had decided to take a year before we had kids. It was something that I did not want to do, and he did. He struggled with anxiety for a long time, and it's something that he doesn't mind me sharing, and he's very open about talking about, which you might get on sometime and talk about it. He's very open about it. So the first couple of years of our marriage were really tough. He struggled with anxiety, and now he's on anti-anxiety medication and has been for a few years, and he's just so free now. He's free of that anxiety and the depression that comes with it. And to go in depth is kind of his story, but he wouldn't mind me sharing. And our marriage is so great now, and we struggled a lot, and that was at the root of a lot of our issues. And now he's just so free and happy and enjoys his wife and his work and his kids and his friends and church, and he volunteers a lot, and he just has freedom to do all that. So that's really cool. But the first few years were difficult because of it, and there was like a power struggle because there were all these things I wanted to do now that we were married, and he wasn't able to at the time, and so it was very frustrating for both of us. One of those things was we wanted to have kids. I wanted to, and he needed to wait and wanted to wait, and there was a lot of fear and anxiety that went with the thought of having children and the cost and everything that went with them. And so we did wait, and we did use birth control, and now we laugh because we're like, oh, we never needed it. But when we did decide exactly a year after we were married, I went off birth control, and we both decided that we would start trying to have kids. So we tried for about a year and a half. We were tested, got checked, and we were told that we were infertile. We were told that it was an issue with him, and we didn't have any follow-up testing, and we didn't know to look into it more. So we just went on thinking it was an issue with him. I decided a lot of this was me driven. I decided to get a license for foster care. So we went to all the classes, we did the background checks, and then we both decided, we were fighting after each class, and it was just something he didn't want to do. He was afraid to bring in these kids and then be responsible for them and then have them go back to a bad situation, and there was no control. We had no control over that. And that was something that I too, towards the end, started to struggle with. And in New Hampshire, their focus is reunification with the kids, and it was weird because the foster care classes we went to, it's kind of like they were trying to talk us or scare us out of fostering. It was weird. The stories they would tell us of the kids that would go back, I think they were just trying to make sure that we didn't have unrealistic expectations, but it definitely was why we decided not to. We didn't. Reunification is such a big thing, and we specifically wanted to foster to adopt. And I have some friends that do it now, and like now that we've looked into it some more, children definitely, I think more kids are staying with their families and being adopted, even though reunification is a huge thing. But at the time it seemed like it was something that would not happen. So we decided that it just wasn't for us right then. We took a summer and went on a missions trip, and when we came back, we decided we were going to go with a private adoption. So we picked our agency. It's the same agency my parents used for me, and then my brother, and then my other brother. And we decided to go with them. It was kind of a no-brainer, and it was really cool because one of the social workers, there were 2 social workers that worked with us through our adoption of Thea, and she was the same social worker for myself, my parents, when they adopted for me, and then for my 2 brothers. So we'd come full circle. She said I believe we were the first ones that had done that, that she'd seen go full circle. So she'd been in it for a very long time, 26 years. Well, back then, 24 years. And yeah, so that was really cool. I'm second generation with their agency and with her, and she just got to see it come full circle, and that was really cool and cool for us. We didn't get special treatment for it, but it was really cool. So it took about 6 months for us to put our paperwork through, get everything done, and then we waited and waited about 8, 9, 10 months. We definitely had some meetings with different parents, different birth parents, had some potential matches, but nothing crazy. During that time, I was very impatient, and I looked into using our home study to adopt through the foster care system, because there are a lot of kids waiting. I also looked at some international adoption, and just nothing seemed to jump out at us. So we were matched with our first child, and there's another video, it fell through, and we did have her for 8 days. We were in Vermont trying to adopt her for 10, and after that fell through, we decided that we weren't sure that was in November of last year. We weren't sure what we were going to do. So we decided to put our adoption on hold, just so we could heal and move on and decide what we wanted to do. We'd already put out a lot of money. And so what we decided was we'd look into foster. We'd use our home study to see if we could adopt through the foster care system, and we told our agency that we were going to pursue that, and we were going to, and then on the side, we decided we would try 1 round of IUI, which is intrauterine insemination, which is basically just, and I've made a video about that too, basically they take the sperm and they take the egg when you're ovulating, and they just take the sperm and inject it right next to the egg, right there in the office. And we were told, so we'd gone, so like to back up. So over the summer of 2017, we'd gone back, gotten a second opinion, changed doctors, started seeing a fertility specialist, and they'd had me taking hormones for 6 months, and then we could have done IVF or IUI, and the IUI is a cheaper, easier, simpler version. And so we decided to go with that first, and then if it didn't work, we were either going to do IVF or we were going to look into adopting embryos. They're called snowflakes. They're already fertilized and they're frozen. And so we were going to look into that. So anyways, we had everything on hold, decided to go with our IUI, and then we were told it wouldn't work the first time, to expect 3 to 4 rounds, and the most they would do is 6. And a week after we did it, we found out Thea was born, and even though we were on hold, it just was the perfect situation. So our social worker called us, said, "We know you're on hold, but we'd love it if you would consider her. I think it would be as safe as it can be, adoption, and we think it would work for you, and we think it's a perfect match. So can you pray about it and decide?" And we did, and we decided to go with her. And then we found out a few weeks after Thea was born, and we'd done the IUI. I actually forgot about it, with everything going on with Thea. And then we found out we were pregnant. So that was fun and cool. They will be 8.5 months apart. And that's how we got our Irish twins. And it wasn't supposed to happen. Neither one was supposed to happen. Our adoption was on hold, and the first round wasn't supposed to work, and they both did. So I'm like looking at her, she's snoring over there. They both did, and so that's really cool. So now we've been 2 months into it. She was with a foster care family for a month. So she will be 3 months next week when we do our update, and I am 15 weeks pregnant. Today, actually. And, yeah, it's starting to sink in. But after we adopted her, we thought it would be hard, but we'd been preparing for 4 years to have kids, and had been on our mind. And it was a lot harder for our marriage than we thought it would be. I actually just had our second social work. So for 6 months, every month you either have a visit or a phone call with your social workers to check in before your final court date. So we had our second one yesterday, and it was a phone call, and we were telling our social worker, that our marriage is really good. We work really, really hard on it. We work really hard pretty much on a daily basis, and it's always been a priority for us, and we don't fight that much. And after Thea came, we had been fighting every weekend consistently all weekend, and both of us had been keeping track of what the other one was doing and not doing, and there was some guilt and blaming on each other, and it was hard. It was a lot harder than we thought. We thought, oh, we'll get this baby. We've been waiting years, and we've been through so much, and it'll just be sunshine and roses and rainbows. And it was not. Lack of sleep, going through your first trimester pregnant on top of it. You're just exhausted, and then being pregnant, you're exhausted. And so, and just getting used to another little person who's super bossy, by the way. She's super bossy. And I thought I was the bossy one. And so it was just fights. And we finally sat down a couple weeks ago, and we're like, we can't keep fighting. Like, that's not who we are, and we're both miserable, and she'll be miserable if we're miserable. And, but everything we show on social media is just the happy, the cute, just we're so happy, and she's so adorable. But beneath it all, we're at each other's throats, ready to kill each other. It was bad. It was so bad. We would fight in the car and then show up at people's houses and be like, hey, like fighting at home. And then we'd go to church and be like, hey. And so it's been hard to adjust, but now we've both realized, and we both have lots of chats, and, and we have a lot of good examples around us, so it's kind of easy to bounce things off kind of casually off people and just realize, and I've had some rants. I have a friend, my best friend, I call her, and I rant. And, you know, you work it out and you realize that you can't keep track. Taking care of a kid isn't like unloading the dishwasher or doing the laundry. Like, you don't just have a list and check off what you've done and then tally it and make sure it's fair. I have her all day with me, and then I go home and he's been working all day, and somebody has to make dinner, and somebody has to feed her, and somebody has to take care of the cats, and somebody has to put her to bed, and somebody has to give her a bath, and like sometimes it's me and sometimes it's him. And you know, and now that she's not breakable as much, now that she's bigger, he's definitely pitching in more. And my mom had told me that it's what I do for my job. I am a nanny for my job, and I've always helped with kids in different capacities, and he works in quality at a machine at a composites plant. So it's like two totally different worlds. And yeah, but we're finally getting it together, and it won't be the last of our arguments. And in October we can start all over again and learn how to do it with two babies. And so yeah, definitely not all hunky-dory, and Instagram only shows one part of your life, but it's definitely worth it. And the hardship of our story from last year was definitely worth it, and it just makes this year so much more exciting and so much more fun. So we will do an update. That's about it. We'll do an update next week. I'll have Thea, because I know nobody wants to see me. Everybody wants to see Thea. And we'll do an update with her and an update on my 16-week pregnancy. And I'll throw a belly shot in there next week. And we will see you then. We hope you have a great week. And we'll see you next week. Bye.